6th. If everyone could stand for the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. Pastana, could I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. President. Ms. Gierzmkowski.
Here.
Mr. Dimick.
Here.
Ms. Ryan.
Here.
Ms. Cotter.
Here.
I'm here. Ms. Dodd.
Here.
And Mr. Wiseman.
Here.
Present and accounted for.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Moved by Member Pastana, seconded by Member Dodd. Could I have a roll call, please?
I am a yes. Ms. Dodd.
Yes.
Ms. Cotter.
Yes.
Ms. Ryan.
Yes.
Mr. Dimick.
Yes.
Ms. Gierzmkowski.
Yes.
And Mr. Wiseman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, communications reports, items from the board president. A couple things. For our audience that is here, just a reminder, if you would like to speak during the public comment portion of our meeting, which is located or is allowed twice during the meeting, once as it relates to agenda items that will be voted on tonight and one on non-agenda items. There's sheets over on the wall for you to submit to Lori so that we can address you. A couple of things that I'd like to report out. One, as a reminder, we are going to once again have a community forum. Those community forums are available, will be held on March 7th, which is a Tuesday, and March 8th, which is a Wednesday, from 6 to 8. March 7th is going to be held at Muir Middle School. And on Wednesday, it will be from 6 to 8 at White Lake Middle School. It's an opportunity for the public to meet one-on-one with board members. Board members will be available to sit, listen, discuss. And it's really an opportunity for us to get to know you a little bit better and to hear your ideas as it relates to the opportunities that we're providing our community and our students now and into the future. So I ask you to take advantage of that. That's March 7th and March 8th. In addition to that, I do want to say thank you to Member Dimick, along with our superintendent and a number of our staff that attended a celebration of life for a student, Jacob Stenberger, who had passed away. So Jordan, who passed away, and the celebration of life was on Sunday. So I really appreciate that as you representing us. In addition to that, I also want to announce that a number of our board members will be attending the Winter Institute, which is going to be on Friday, February 24th to 26th. It's really an opportunity once again for our board members to take advantage virtually as it relates to boardsmanship. Some of the topics that will be talked about and discussed at that time is the spectrum of school security, along with a variety of other topics such as school safety and security, parliamentary procedures, and other opportunities for you to discuss items with other board members throughout the state. And with that, I'll turn that over to Dr. Slot.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I will invite Ms. Rothler to the podium.
Try it again. Tonight's Huron Valley recognition is a group of 8th graders who have excelled in the standards-based measurement of proficiency language test, otherwise known as STAMP S4. As the board knows, HVS graduation requirements includes 2 credits of world language, but for many students in our district, they were able to test out of those requirements for a variety of reasons. So now I would like to invite up Lena Nemeth with a brief presentation, and then Board Secretary Denise Pastana will join her to recognize these 11 students.
Thank you, and good evening, members of the board and HVS community. As Barb mentioned, we have some outstanding eighth graders. Do I have this close enough? There. That we're recognizing today for their performance on the Stamp 4S assessment, which is an assessment in multiple languages in all domains of language: reading, writing, speaking, and listening. As one of our graduation requirements, all students must take 2 credits of a world language, and the students who can pass the Stamp 4S test can test out of those credit requirements, which will allow them to take other courses in high school and have some space for even another language if they choose, or some electives. So part of the requirement with this assessment is that they have to receive a score in all 4 domains. So that's reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And if they achieve a 3 or more in all areas, they will get both of their high school credit requirements taken care of. And if they receive a 2 or above, they will get 1 credit. So we have 11 8th grade students in Huron Valley that have achieved this and will be receiving credit in high school. And we want to take a moment to recognize them. I know a lot of them are here. So I'm going to read their names, and Mrs. Pastana is going to provide them their certificate and their principals. We have Mr. Digsby, Mrs. Chakowski, and Mrs. Durso here as well to also recognize these students. Okay, sounds great. Okay, so from Muir Middle School, we have Maya Pletzer. Also from Muir, Noah Bergen. From Oak Valley, we have Jasmine Alonzo Berganza. Carlos Costello. Stephanie Coy. Jordan Contreras. Letizia Matul. And from White Lake Middle School, Naomi Aponte Santiago. Hector Gonzalez, Sophia Rashko, and Lena LaPrat. Congratulations to all of you for your hard work and your accomplishment, and we are very proud of you for receiving these credits early before high school. Thank you.
Do parents want to take a picture before they leave? You can stay up there. Stay up there. Let mom and dads come up and grab a picture.
Any school presentations?
Thank you again, Mr. President. Congratulations to all of our students who received their stamp accomplishment. That's quite an accomplishment. And again, always thanks to our building principals for being here to show their support for our students. So next up, we have school presentations, and it is my privilege to introduce the proud principal of Johnson Elementary School, Mr. Janak. Yeah, that's a give up the back. I think I heard a woo in there, Josh.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's some shout out to some of our ex-Jaguars that were just up there. That was cool to see some familiar faces and their teachers in the crowds, too. I know some of them are here, too. So thank you. If we could dim that, that was super helpful with that light that was dimmed in the previous presentation. I'm going to run this back to the beginning. Everybody cover your eyes so you don't see my whole slideshow here. And you may look now. All right. My crew behind me. So thank you for the kind introduction, Dr. Salah. I am Principal Janak, Mr. G, Mr. Janak. I'm the proud principal at Johnson Elementary. and I have some fellow Jaguars behind me. They'll have a moment to introduce themselves and share with you some great things that they are doing here at Johnson in just a few minutes. So I'm here tonight to talk about Johnson Elementary and what we also call Jaguar Country, home of Jaguar Pride. So specifically, when we talk about or you hear Jaguar Pride, it's an acronym. Like most things in education are, there are even a few more acronyms embedded in the presentation. But Jaguar Pride is an acronym that stands for perseverance, respect, integrity, dependability, and empathy. So if you ever see Jaguar Pride or hear of our students and ways they show Jaguar Pride, it has to do with our building-wide, which we call Tier 1, school-wide PBIS. So here come the acronyms. PBIS is an acronym that stands for Positive Behavior Intervention and Supports. When we talk about Jaguar Pride, it's a part of our MTSS, which means multi-tiered systems of support. So I'll have you turn and talk to a friend in just a moment in the spirit of good pedagogy about what that means. But to put it in layman's terms, what this means is that this is a building-wide system for all students to have access to that really help to support, reinforce, and reward positive behaviors at Johnson. To go back in time, when I first started at Johnson, we were a leader in me school. And just the year before last, we decided it was a great time to really reinvent ourselves and rethink what we're doing with character development at Johnson and really start something in-house, more organic, that is really more accessible to students in really kid-friendly terms. And that's not to speak ill of Leader Me, because we did wonderful things with that too, but it was time for a change. As a matter of fact, some of the teachers that really helped spearhead that are in the crowd here today. So to start the year, all students, grades kindergarten through 5, are explicitly taught what it means to show pride, which again are these words here. And throughout the year, our staff, and I don't just mean teaching staff, I mean any adult in the building, often has what we call a pocket full of pride. They have pride tickets, which I'll, if people are on their best behavior and show some pride here today, you may end up with a pride ticket. I have a pocket full of pride with me today. And all staff, all adults have an opportunity to recognize, reinforce, and reward the character traits of pride throughout the day, whether it be from the start of the day, even getting on the bus, throughout the day and heading home on the bus. There's always opportunities to earn a pride ticket. So here's what pride stands for. Of course, perseverance. And we teach our students that perseverance means that we keep doing something even when there are obstacles in the way. We persevere when we don't give up, even when things are hard. For those of you that have been in education for a while, some of these align well with habits of thinking, if you remember that from years past. So these are traits that aren't just useful for elementary age students, but really for all of us throughout life. Respect, of course, always showing respect, caring about how our words and actions may impact others, and always remembering to use kind words and kind hands if you're ever at Johnson and you're listening to the morning announcements or words coming out of Mr. G's mouth or the staff. You always hear kind words and kind hands. Quick story: my daughters had a half day and they came to Johnson a couple weeks ago, and they've never had an opportunity to see Mr. G, Principal Janak. They only know Dad. So when I was talking to some students and I said, "Hey, little guy, remember, our little friend, we always have to use kind words and kind hands." My high school daughter just covered her eyes and she said, "You talk that way?" I said, "Oh yeah, I really talk that way." "You don't talk like that to us at home." I said, "Well, you get Dad at home, not Mr. G." So we use kind words, kind hands at Johnson. And we also want to teach that I stands for integrity, always being honest and making good decisions, even when no one is looking. Ms. Durso, where are you? We have that in there. We were just talking to one of our Jaguars about the even when no one is looking part. Dependability, of course, always building trust by doing what we say we're going to do. And when we're dependable, people can count on us. And this is the big one that we work hard for and strive for every day, is empathy, being able to know how someone else is feeling, even when I am not in the same situation. So these are some of the traits that we celebrate. If you were to walk our halls, we try to make this language visible. You'll see hanging from the ceilings banners that have the words. We really try to use the words as often as we can in our daily speech, our lexicon, and again, teach the students to recognize each other. As a matter of fact, we often have students that will recognize other students for showing pride at Johnson as well. And so now here's where the reward system comes into play. We're always looking for Jaguar leaders that are using these traits, whether it be on recess or in the building. And if we quote unquote catch you, you'll be recognized on the announcements. You'll be given, well, first of all, you'll be recognized with the Pride ticket. Your name will be on the announcements. You'll be given a special Pride pencil and entered in a drawing for a pizza party with the principal. So once a month at the end of the month, I do a drawing, 3 students from K2, 3 students from 3-5 to join me for a pizza party with the principal. It's tough. It's kind of bittersweet because we have oftentimes hundreds of tickets, which is a great thing, of students that earn Pride tickets. I don't think that much pizza is in the budget, but maybe we can talk about that. So I try to pare it down to around 6 students, and sometimes if they want to bring a friend, they can. So they get a pencil. And then if you ever come into our main office, you may see on our screen students that are so proud to put their Pride tickets in the Pride bins with their pencils. These are the best faces. And then a pizza party with the principal. So that's kind of what Pride looks like at Johnson, but the real stars of the show are behind me. So I thought it would be a great way to close, and you could never think that the presentation didn't go well by ending with some Jaguars sharing how they show pride on a day-to-day basis, whether it be at school or at home. So I'll have them come on up one at a time. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and the stage is yours.
All right. Good evening. My name is Sam, and I'm in 5th grade. The P in Pride stands for perseverance. Perseverance means that I don't give up, even when things get hard. I use perseverance when math can feel frustrating to me. But instead of giving up, I can study, ask questions, and try my best.
Hi, my name is Emma, and I'm in 3rd grade. The R in Pride stands for respect. Respect means caring about how my words and actions may impact others. I show respect in the classroom by raising my hand when I have something to add and not talking over others. Good evening, my name is Landon. Good evening, my name is Landon. I am in 3rd grade. The I in Pride stand for integrity. Integrity means always being honest and making good decisions. I show integrity when I follow the rules when nobody is watching.
Good evening. My name is Sadie, and I'm in 1st grade. The D in Pride stands for dependability. Dependability means I do what I say I'm going to do. I am dependable when I'm doing my homework and following the rules at school.
Good evening. My name is Marco, and I am in 2nd grade. The E in Pride stands for empathy. Empathy means knowing how someone else is feeling, even if I am not in the same situation. I show empathy when I see a friend who is sad or lonely during recess. I will go sit with them and let them know they have a friend to talk to.
So we thought that it would be a good idea to see if the board wanted to join us for a pizza party with the principal, see if you get lucky. We're going to deliver some Pride tickets and a pencil for you, but in order to be in the pizza party with the principal, you have to stop by, put it in the bins at Johnson, come and say hi in the office. We may even put your name on the rolling screen if you want to come in, and I promise, if I pull your name, you're invited for a pizza party with the principal and the kids. So you want to go do some deliveries? Follow me, guys. Follow me. Come on, Jaguars, come on back really quick. And just to add, the more pride tickets that you get in the box, the greater your chances of getting a pizza party with the principal. I know sometimes the board likes to ask questions. I don't know if there are any questions that you have for the team behind us.
Yes, I believe we do. Ms. Pastana.
So, of any of the presenters, have you guys gotten to be part of a pizza party yet?
I
have. Was it a good time? Okay, good to know. You guys did a great job tonight. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you so much for all of you being dependent.
Sam, you want to take it from here, buddy?
I said everyone dependable.
Wow. Excellent. Any other comments or questions? That's hard to follow, but I will tell you that when I run across the word pride, I certainly will take it and look at it in a different fashion. And while you took away the word pride, because we do take a lot of pride in all of you, we are extraordinarily proud of each and every one of you and what you do every day to make Johnson that special place. So thank you very much for being here.
We appreciate that. Thank you as well.
All right. With that, you can stay for the rest of the meeting, but I will recess the meeting for a couple of minutes so you can choose to stay or leave.
I do appreciate the offer, but I think for our friends here, we're going to get them on their way. They have a busy day at learning tomorrow at Johnson. So
Absolutely.
And I want to make sure
you did such a great job. Tomorrow, we're going to give you an early release.
Yeah, don't play with my emotions like that, Mr.
So you can take ownership on that.
Yeah, it's a true story.
Not possible, but I will share some highlights if I may. So just a couple items this evening. First and foremost, for those of you who are unaware, this upcoming Friday there is the coveted Lakeland Milford game. So excited about that. That's always fun. And if you get a chance to get out and watch the games, it'd be fantastic. And then in between the two games, there's also the Hall of Fame event where we have an opportunity to honor past athletes who will be recognized into the Lakeland Hall of Fame. So it's always a fun evening, great event. I would share with our listening audience in particular, school safety has been a focus for us this school year. We've continued to implement best practices. Last year, we engaged a company called Recon Management LLC, who came out and did a thorough audit of all of our buildings. They provided a variety of recommendations regarding visitor management protocols, placement of cameras, and just overall identifying some maintenance and operational items that needed to be repaired. A lot of focus on doors, hedges around the perimeter of the building that could block line of sight. Barb and I had an opportunity to revisit that conversation with Recon. We plan to have them come back in this school year between the months of March and May to do what I would call like a post-assessment, if you will. They're going to walk through all of our buildings once again, give another look based upon the recommendations from the first go-around, some of the tweaks and modifications that we've made to just give us sort of an update regarding where we're at in terms of our safety and security measures and protocols. So that will be forthcoming here, and each principal will receive a specific report for their building and how they did. Last but not least, I actually do not have very much this evening. I'm pleased to announce to the board that We have a principal for Lakewood Elementary School. Her name is Heather Peden. Heather comes to us actually from North Carolina. She spent 13 years at the elementary level in the classroom. She finished her master's in North Carolina State University and was awarded a fully paid fellowship for North Carolina State University, top principal preparatory program in the U.S. And she had what they call a paid internship. It's a little different there in North Carolina. They actually pay for principals to be interns for a full year. So she spent a full year as a middle school assistant principal, and her current position right now is a high school assistant principal at one of the largest high schools in North Carolina. So we're really pleased to welcome Heather to the team. Her contract requires a 60-day notification, so she will not be with us until April 3rd. So in the meanwhile, we have an interim principal at Lakewood who's supporting the building. TLT department is all hands on deck with anything they need over there as well. We will also likely have to look for another interim over the month of March, and we're working on that right now. So just a quick update on Lakewood Elementary School. And that's all I have this evening, Mr. President. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Slaw. Ms. Pastana, do we have any student leadership today from TLT? None?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Thank you very much. Association communication.
Good evening. First of all, I'd like to thank all of the educators that are in our audience today. I think we have more than we've ever had. I appreciate you spending the evening here as opposed to home, which I know is a wonderful place to be, but thank you for your support and hearing more about our district. This is always one of my favorite association comments to give because I can say we've made it through halfway through the year. First semester is behind us. The students know their routines, and we are deep into teaching our curriculum and observing that learning that's happening each day. We are so fortunate to have many exceptional educators who support our teachers across the district. And tonight, I want to recognize all of our district counselors, as this week is National School Counseling Week. The American School Counseling Association each year has a theme for this week, and this year's theme is School Counselors Helping Students Dream Big. And our Huron Valley counselors do this every day. In our district, we have one full-time counselor at each middle school, an additional middle school counselor who divides her time between all of the middle schools across the district, 3 counselors each at Milford and Lakeland, and a counselor at the International Academy. The day in the life of our school counselor is very busy, especially since they never can predict how the day is going to go, as students' needs vary minute by minute. Flexibility is an important part of their job. Our counselors spend the majority of their time talking one-on-one with students to support their needs. Students come down to talk to their counselors for a variety of reasons, such as academic concerns, class schedules, anxiety, conflicts with peers, and concerns about their family. Our counselors are there to listen to them, discuss their needs, help brainstorm solutions, and connect them to resources, both at school and in the community. Our counselors work in partnership with our principals, teachers, school social workers, and school psychologists to ensure that our students are receiving the support that they need. In addition to individually talking with students, sometimes our counselors go into classrooms to discuss how to access student support services, how to schedule classes for the following year, test prep for standardized testing, career activities, and handling grief and loss. A key piece of their job is to support our students to ensure that they are academically on the right track, enrolled in the right classes, and getting the support they need in order to graduate. Career exploration has become a real big focus area for their job. They talk with students to encourage them to think about what they would like to do and connect those areas to possible future careers. They help guide students into specific elective classes, as those elective classes are great opportunities for more career exploration.
Our counselors organize career activities to enable students to learn about career fields and post-secondary options, all the while knowing that not everyone will go to college and there's lots of different ways to get training for jobs after high school. And finally, our counselors not only support our students, but they regularly connect with our administrators, teachers, and parents. As we all know, mental health needs of our students has increased significantly and frequently over the past 5 years. Even prior to the pandemic, the increase in concerns was noticeable. And this takes a village to help our students. Our counselors do what they do each day because they want to see our students not only succeed academically, but also grow the skills so as adults, they can manage their emotions, independently resolve their conflicts, and have positive relationships at home and at work. So thank you to all our Huron Valley counselors. Even though school counseling is only this 1 week in February, we see how hard you work all year round and recognize and appreciate the daily impact you have on our students, staff, and families. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Board correspondence. Do we have any correspondence?
No correspondence this evening.
Treasurer's report?
No report tonight. Thank you.
All right. Reports from committee. We'll start off with the executive committee. The executive committee met on January 30th, 2023 at 9:15 a.m. at the Huron Valley School Administration Building. Present were myself along with Member Dodd, Member Pastana, and Dr. Salah. There were no public comments. We discussed the regular agenda that's before us tonight. And in addition to that, we had a further discussion as it pertains to the Oakland County School Board Association bylaws and amendments that are before us for a vote tonight. Dr. Salah shared the final version of the strategic plan, the one-page highlight that you have before us, in the larger poster size highlights that will be distributed to schools throughout the district. In addition, we talked and had a discussion regarding the NSBA conference that's going to be held later in the year. The committee discussed with board members what board members will be attending the April NSBA conference in order to assure travel arrangements. Dr. Salah and former board member Sean Carlson will be presenting at this conference on behalf of the Board of Education in the school district. This is a great honor for a district to be selected and highlighted at a national conference, and HVS was also notified this week that its presentation was selected as a session that will be pre-recorded in February and shared nationally for 90 days before the conference begins. The next board study session, we had one in January. The committee discussed the continued importance of professional learning, relationship development, collaboration amongst and between Board of Education members. The committee requested that Dr. Salah reach out to MASB in order to reserve a session with Scott Morrell, who helped us before, in the development board goals and board operating procedures. The last item that was discussed was school safety and security. The entire district was trained in Stop the Bleed training at the beginning of the school year through an online training. A follow-up training occurred on January 30th, 2023 with the Highland Fire Department with the entire administrative instructional team. In addition to that, tonight we'll be receiving an update as it relates to legislative advocacy from Vice President Dodd, who gave a report out on her NSBA advocacy conference that she attended in Washington, D.C. And we'll hear further about that later on tonight. We adjourned at 12:30 p.m. TLT Committee.
TLT Committee met January 24th, 3:30 at the Administration Building. Present were myself, Ms. Cotter, Mr. Dimmick, Mr. Tavernier, Dr. Salah, Mr. Lindberg, Ms. Bjorkman, Ms. Thompson, Ms. Nemeth, Mr. Wisnick, and then our students reps, Alexis and Maya. There were no public comment. We talked about behavior interventionist, and Mr. Janak kind of talked about that today. Anyway, using the behavior intervention systems of support, these additional resources will collaborate with our social workers to address the social emotional needs of all students. Grant funds will be used to support these new positions. We had Ms. Nemeth provided an overall of the state's Assessment and Accountability Reporting System, which is available on the My School Data website. The state uses two separate systems for reporting on school progress, school grades and school index. Committee discussed the differences and complexity with these two systems and how the data and metrics are used to report on school progress. We also discussed the network electronics purchase. That will be under new business tonight. This equipment was bid as part of the E-rate program and as part of the 2020 bond program. It was supported by the committee for this exhibit to appear as new business tonight. Mr. Tavernier shared that the TLT department will be evaluating the roles and responsibilities of the new fine arts coordinator position that was part of the board resolution in December. Well, we discussed administrative guidelines. With the implementation of the NOLA policies, administration will begin the process of reviewing and adopting administrative guidelines. Mr. Tavernier will lead this work for the 2000 and 5000 series and update the TLT with progress over the next several months. We discussed future meeting dates and times, which will be posted. And then lastly, student leadership. The girls shared, Alexis shared that the MHS students are preparing for the end of semester exams. That was then. She also shared that students were preparing care packages for freshman students who are experiencing their first final exams. Maya shared concerns held by students at the IA about teacher retention. She also shared that the IA West students were preparing for CUBE, which stands for Knowledge, Understanding, Belief, Experiences. This is a public speaking engagement, much like TED Talks, and gives students an opportunity to present their passion in a 7 to 8 minute speech. Committee discussed the need to schedule student leaders to attend board meetings during the second semester, and we adjourned at 4:40.
Thank you very much. Finance and Operations.
Yes, we did not meet. We have not met since our last meeting. However, at the last meeting, some of the items we discussed and will be under old business for tonight. And we're planning our next meeting for Wednesday, the 15th, next week.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Treasurer Cotter. Communications Marketing.
Yes, we have not met since our last meeting, and our next meeting is this Wednesday at 3:30 at the Administration Building.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comments. Do we have any public comments? Okay. We have opportunities for public comments twice. First public comments is on agenda items. The second is on non-agenda items. But because Mr. Pearson is the only one at the present time that wishes to speak, I will recognize Mr. Pearson at this time for 3 minutes.
Now that's very embarrassing because I think I've been to over 150 school board meetings over the years. I'd just like to take a couple minutes to mention tonight some news that I learned of a former Milford High School student. We are currently involved with defending, to some extent, the Republic of the Ukraine. And years ago, before I retired in 2010, I had a student a little bit before that named Alex Kovalenko. And I knew that his parent, I think his dad, worked at Metro Airport in aviation baggage and cargo shipments on the airlines. Alex followed his dad in a similar business. Sometime after he left the Milford community, he went down to the Atlanta area, which is certainly big for aviation and public airplanes, transportation. And he worked at a number of jobs. He evidently studied Spanish when he was here. He was already fluent in Ukrainian. He learned a little Russian, which is very similar. And I understand he knows some Portuguese as well. That really helped him down in Atlanta because he worked in cargo and talked with a lot of people from different airlines. He worked for a number of years for KLM, Royal Dutch Airlines. Well, in this world news situation we're in right now, Alex was just hired by the United States Defense Department last September as a federal procurement specialist. and he also knows airplanes and airplane parts. And I see that he's stationed down in the greater Tucson area. And those of you who have been to Tucson know that that's where our aircraft graveyard is. The desert has enormous acreage with old airplanes out in it, some not so old, and they all look very expensive, but they're not in use. So I presume, just a guess, that Alex is helping prepare old used planes, not too old, to help the Ukraine in some way, fashion or another. A great student from Milford High School. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the consent items, exhibits A1, A2, and A3. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll move to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Moved by Member
I'll
Dodd,
support that.
support by Member Cotter. Could I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Dodd,
Yes.
Ms. Cotter,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Grisomkowski,
Yes.
Ms. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Dimick,
Yes.
and Mr. Wiseman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Under unfinished business, I'll start off with approval of OCSBA, which stands for Oakland County School Board Association. As we know, but the public might not know, but our school board belongs to a number of associations. One of them is local, which is the Oakland County School Board Association. Its members consist of school district board of education members throughout Oakland County. And at our meetings that we meet on pretty much a monthly basis, we discuss a variety of common concerns and topics to make us better board members and to provide greater opportunities for our students. Tonight, on an annual basis, there are amendments and bylaw changes that are presented to us. These amendments and bylaws were presented to the board 2 weeks ago by myself as president, and over the last 2 weeks, our board has had an opportunity to review them and to adopt them. They're very minor in nature, but very impactful. For example, the new proposed new resolutions include school nutrition, where the Oakland County School Board Association supports the expansion of the free and reduced meals program to include all children, as was done during the pandemic. And I just read today there's a possibility of the state taking action already on that. So that's good news. The other proposed resolution is that the OCSBA supports that there be adequate state resources to allow schools to both educate and keep our students safe along with our staff. Along with that, there's some minor amendments as it relates to the bylaws, and also included within our packet our Oakland County School Board Association legislative priorities that really mirror a lot of the priorities that Member Dodd will be presenting to us at the national level, but certainly at more of the local level. So with that, I move that the Board of Education approve the Oakland County School Board Association bylaws as presented. Do I have a second?
I can support.
Support, moved by myself and supported by Secretary Pastana. Is there any discussion or comments? Seeing none? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm so close, it's hard to
Yes.
see. So I just want to make sure, so the question I asked before, because we get these and then we have 2 weeks to kind of look at it. And the question I did ask is, our support doesn't mean that we're spending money. Our support on this just means we support these two things, and so they know that the school districts around support. So I just want to make that real clear that that this is a supportive move, but none of this is us binding ourselves into either of these two programs, even though we're supportive of them.
Yes, that is correct. Any other questions or comments? Could I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Wiseman,
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Dodd,
Yes.
Mr. Dimick,
Yes.
Ms. Cotter,
Yes.
Ms. Ryan,
Yes.
Ms. Grisomkowski.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda under our unfinished business is Board Policy 8400 revisions. Dr. Slop?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. As presented at the January 23rd, 2023 meeting, as well as the executive meeting on January 20th, There were some revisions to Board Policy 8400 regarding school safety, specifically around a school safety committee. Those revisions were made. I have not had further questions from the Board of Education. I'm asking the board to approve Board Policy 8400 as presented in its final version this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions to Dr. Slaw? Any comments? Seeing, yes.
I saw we
Member
were
Dimmick.
going to be adding a board member to that committee as well. Is that just appointed by the president?
Mr. President will
Very well, thank
appoint board member.
Great. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Do you?
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, let's do that. All right.
I'll support.
All right. That took another 10 seconds here. All right. Go ahead.
Sorry. I'm a yes. Miss Dodd.
Yes.
Miss Cotter.
Yes.
Miss Ryan.
Yes.
Miss Grzymkowski.
Yes.
Mr. Dimick.
Yes.
And Mr. Wiseman.
Yes.
Excellent. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Next, sale of 2023 school building and site bonds, Series 2. Dr. Salah.
I'll turn this one over to Mr. Van Gotham.
Thank you, Dr. Salah. So 2 weeks ago, or at the last board meeting, we discussed the $182 million that the community graciously approved for bond and building site work. We did sell the first series, $112 million, believe it or not, 3 years ago, and this is the second series. The remaining $70 million from the bond that was approved in the fall of 2019. And so the district is going to sell those under a competitive bid process, which will ensure us the lowest interest rate on what we'll essentially be paying for our bonds. And so we are excited to be selling those. We will sell those within the next couple months. In the last couple weeks, I have not heard from many board members with questions since we first presented it. And so we're bringing it to the board tonight for a final vote so we can start our process.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion? Yeah.
I'll move that the Board of Education approve the sale of the 2023 Series 2 school building and site bonds as presented.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. Member Dimick seconded. Any questions or comments? The only question I do have, Mr. Van Goethen, this is something that was approved when we passed the bond issue. We're selling them a series because not only do we want to be financially solvent as it relates to or aware of our financial conditions, this is allowed. We're allowed to sell these bonds because our taxable value has gone up, and this does not increase our tax rate at all.
That's correct. And so we originally, in 2018, when we were starting the process of considering our bond series, we were actually looking at 2024 as the Series 2 sale. So we're able to sell these a year ahead just as a result of property tax value. So that has no impact on the taxpayer as far as a tax rate increase. It just shows the fact that our properties continue to improve. And again, this is going to be a series it's called a 10-year series, but it's 11 payments. And so we're going to keep most of these bonds over a 10-year period because we want to be able to continue to make improvements in the district and not be tied down to a 20, or really a lot of districts do 30-year mortgages on some of these bond series. So we're trying to stay lean and mean with respect to our bond sales.
Okay. And this will also provide the dollars to complete the various projects that we still have yet to complete within the bond issue that was approved a few years ago.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Can I have a roll call then, please?
Yes. Miss Grzymkowski.
Yes.
Mr. Dimick.
Yes.
Miss Dodd.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Miss Cotter.
Yes.
Miss Ryan.
Yes.
And Mr. Wiseman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, Bid Pack 9, approval contract awards, or the remaining contract awards for Lakeland High School and Milford High School remodeling and renovations. Dr. Slaw.
I'll turn that one over to Mr. Van Gotham.
Thank you, Dr. Salah. So again, at our last board meeting, we talked about having several bid categories that either received the bids that weren't really favorable in our opinion or did not receive any bids whatsoever. And so in December, we passed the majority of the contracts that we needed awarded for Bid Pack 9, which is the first phase of our Lakeland and Milford High School improvements. And so what you have before you this evening is those remaining categories for phase 1 of Bid Pack 9. So we had our bond construction team highlighted by Clark Construction essentially rebids these categories, and these are the results of those rebidding. Obviously, this is a market not only being, utilized by Huron Valley schools, but a lot of public schools who have also been blessed by communities that support them with bond initiatives. So it's a good problem for these vendors to have because there's a lot of work to be done. And so we're really happy that we were able to get additional bids for these categories in particular. And so this is the remaining work, which is just a little over $1 million, $244,080. And so we're just asking the board to award these final contracts so that we can have all of our bids complete and we can get the work started.
Great. Do I have a motion to accept?
I'll move to accept. I don't have the words. I move to accept Big Pack 9 high school furniture purchase phase 1 as presented.
No, this is the remodeling.
Oh,
No,
I
you're
skipped.
ahead of.
I'm
you're
moving
ahead of
too far.
yourself.
Bid Pack 9 approval of contract awards for LHS and MHS remodeling renovations, rebid categories phase 1.
Do I have
Support.
a- All right. Moved by Member Dodd, supported by Member Cotter. Any questions or comments? I know that at the last board meeting, we presented this as a new business at that point in time because of the timing. We did not have the pricing. That information was provided to the board. I know there's been several questions that have been raised and or asked, and have you responded to the questions that were brought forth?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. With that, do I have any comments, questions? Seeing none, could I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Ms. Dodd.
Yes.
Ms. Cotter.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Ms. Grisnkowski.
Yes.
Mr. Dimick.
Yes.
Ms. Ryan.
Yes.
And Mr. Wiseman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Next, Bid Pack 9, high school furniture, phase 1. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Salah, but I probably can anticipate him turning that over to Mr. Van Gothen. So, but I want to make sure he doesn't feel left out of the loop.
Let's keep the approvals rolling here. So the last item under unfinished business is Bid Pack 9 high school furniture. So obviously, as we do some of these renovations, these classrooms will be upgraded with furniture, specifically teacher desks, teacher chairs, student desks and chairs, and some additional furniture throughout the buildings. And so what you have before you is the bid pack. We're fortunate to work with some of our cooperative partners on the furniture side. And so this is a reflection of the first phase of the furniture for our high schools. It's coming in at just over $2 million for the first piece here. And so we've asked the board to consider awarding the furniture so that can be ordered and then ultimately put into the classrooms. A little different than elementaries because elementaries were really a short window of time within the work was done. And this is actually ordering furniture for what will be the next 18 months as we, slowly work on classrooms, basically 6 classrooms at a time from now until basically the end of 2024. And so we're purchasing this at a reasonable price now, and then we'll have furniture being delivered to the district over the next 15 to 18 months.
Great. Thank you very much. And this was presented under new business at the last board meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the purchase of the phase 1 high school furniture?
I move that the Board of Education approve Big Pack 9 furniture purchases as presented.
Do I have a second?
Support.
All right. Moved by Member Grisnkowski and supported by Member Cotter. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a roll call, please? Oh, I'm sorry, Amy.
Just for everyone's benefit, in the Finance and Operations Committee, every time we meet, we have TMP, we have Clark Construction, and we have Barton Mallow there to speak to us about all of our bond work. And so sometimes we don't ask a lot of questions here because we've asked a lot of those questions in committee. The furniture was something that had a great deal of conversation around. We talked about reliability. We talked about, all kinds of questions. And then we are fortunate because Ms. Ryan actually has a background in construction, so she also asks questions outside. So sometimes when we do votes like this, don't assume just because there wasn't a lot of questions that we didn't ask a lot of questions. The process is really fascinating to me, and as somebody who's newer to the Finance Committee, it's very I don't want to say it's laborious, but I would say it's labor intensive. We are reviewing every single line item, and then each of the board members that are not on that committee also have the opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Van Gotham, and he is very good about getting information to us and really providing us with the information so we can make good decisions.
Great. Thank you very much. Much appreciated those comments. You're absolutely right. There is a lot of discussion. There's a process that we follow as it relates to new business, unfinished business too, so that not only do we go through this process through our various committees, but it also gives the public an opportunity to hear from us and to see what's going on as it relates to the bond issue dollars, and to make certain that we're doing what we promised as it related to the bond issue that they've entrusted with us. So thank you very much for those comments. Could I have a roll call now?
Ms. Grzymkowski,
Yes.
Ms. Cotter,
Yes.
Ms. Ryan,
Yes.
Mr. Dimick,
Yes.
Ms. Dodd,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, and Mr. Wiseman.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right. Next, we have, under new business, network electronics purchases, Exhibit G.
I think we'll give one to Mr. Tavernier this evening. I think
That's fine.
he feels left out. I can see it.
There you go. Well, thank you, Dr. Salad. President Wiseman, you just talked about how we follow the new business and unfinished business. So this item is under new business this evening. So we're not asking for board to take action on this item tonight, but we will be recommending to bring this back at the next meeting. Back as part of the 2020 bond issue, the district replaced all the network electronics in all of our buildings. We are fortunate to have a private network for all of our information technology systems, but that relies on network electronics equipment in all of our buildings. And so these are the boxes with the blinking lights that are in various closets throughout the district. We installed that system as well as replacing our wireless infrastructure back in 2020. And it has, since that time, been determined that our core switch, which is here at Milford High School, is not meeting our original design criteria. So we sat back down with our consultants and looked at the design parameters and actually sought a replacement solution. So this is through the E-rate program. We did go out to bid back in November, and a bid opening was held in December. We did have a response for a replacement core switch to be installed here at Milford High School. It was within our anticipated budget. And so we are recommending that the board approve the purchase of that equipment. That'll actually happen this summer as part of the E-rate program. So we'll be bringing that back for approval. And this is part of the 2020 bond program. Happy to take any questions, and I know Mr. Wisink is in the audience here as well and can answer any questions you may have.
Yes, Mrs. Dodd.
For the benefit of the group, can you please explain the E-rate program?
Sure. Yeah, E-rate is a program that is available on your phone bill. At the bottom of your bill, there is a fee that is charged every month. It's called the Universal Services Fund. That goes into a program. It's a federal program that provides dollars for schools and libraries to purchase equipment for students to be able to access technology. And so E-rate is a program that's available. Huron Valley is actually, we receive approximately 50% in rebates of any purchases that we make that are a part of that program. So those funds are very helpful for us to stretch our dollars in programs like this.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Dimick.
More of a statement. I'm in the TLT committee as well, and I'm very happy to say that the new equipment, we expect the shelf life to be approximately at a minimum of 10 years. So it is a big purchase, but we expect it to bolster our network significantly. Like you said, we have our own private network, which is all fiber, which requires pretty sophisticated equipment, and I think it's definitely necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Dimick. Any other questions, comments? One question I have as it relates to the contract award of $137,000 is that the true cost? Is the true cost $274, or is it $137, and we're really only going to be responsible for about half of that ultimately?
So it is $137,567. That is the cost of the equipment. Then we would receive the E-rate discount after. And so those dollars go back into our bond program.
Okay, so the net effect is about half of that,
Correct.
$137,000.
Correct.
Because of the E-rate. Okay, thank you. If you have any questions over the next few weeks until we meet again in March, please direct them to Dr. Slaw or Mr. Tavernier. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, under new business, is NSBA Advocacy Conference. Our executive committee asked Mrs. Dodd to present. Each district, the Advocacy Institute that Mrs. Dodd had an opportunity to attend brings together educational leadership to explore and discuss the latest developments of key educational policies, legislation, and champions issues as it relates to pre-K-12 students. Some of the things that were discussed was lobbying relationships, learning recovery, COVID relief, student mental health, special ed funds, vouchers, child nutrition, and rural education. Tonight, Member Dodd, Vice President Dodd, will be providing and sharing more detail and information. I think it's important to note that our board is a very active board. We certainly believe in continuous education, and we're very involved in that. In fact, one of our board policies specifically states that the Board of Education recognizes the value of memberships in attendance in conferences and meetings at the local, county, state, and national level. Attendance at local, county, state, and national workshops and conferences is encouraged. Each board member is expected to report back to the board after attending a conference at the district's expense. Not only is this an opportunity for us as a board and our community to hear what was brought forth and what Vice President Dodd is bringing back, but it really showcases how important Huron Valley's voice is at the local, state, and national level. And I applaud Mrs. Dodd for spending several days away from her family and away from her regular job to represent not only us as a Board of Education, but our educational staff and our communities. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we did all of this, and I thought, boy, we forgot about that equity symposium at the very beginning. So I'll just real quick, I don't have a slide on this. The very first day, I flew out on Friday, and Saturday all day was an equity symposium, just talking about equity for all kids and making sure that our schools work for every single kid, and that we're doing what we need to make sure that that we're a place where every kid, just like our mission statement, building futures one student at a time. So that really was kind of the theme of it. They sort of stole our mission statement for their theme, but it was really a nice day. This presentation, though, is focused on the Advocacy Institute that was held Sunday through Tuesday in Washington, D.C., right downtown. And the first 2 days were really learning days, and then after that was actually meeting with our legislature and the members of our elected group to advocate on behalf of our district. So I was honored to be able to be there and advocate on behalf of the Huron Valley students and faculty and everyone involved. It was a wonderful experience. So the purpose of the Advocacy Institute was to update us on latest developments in key federal education policy. We were hearing from experts and policymakers on education research and new legislation. And then we also met with elected officials and their staff to build relationships and discuss local priorities. It was an interesting time to be in Washington, D.C., because if you've been following any Washington, D.C. news over the last month, it's a whole new group of folks. Specifically, Congress switched from one party to the other, which means every committee was sort of flipped up in the air and new leadership was assigned. So as we were there, people were getting assigned to their committees. So it was an interesting time to be in DC. So every 2 years, the Michigan Association of School Boards surveys school board members to determine what our legislative priorities are. And the 4 federal priorities that we took to the Advocacy Institute included discussing the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act funding, education professional shortages, free and reduced lunch expansion, and title funding. And I'm just going to go into a little bit more about what those are, because every time somebody else uses those words, I ask them to explain. So I'll do a little explaining. So the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA, is what we call it. So I'm going to call it IDEA from here on out, was enacted about 47 years ago. It's a federal law that provides free and appropriate public education to eligible children with disabilities and ensures special education and related services for those children. So this is really the act that said, hey, school districts, you are required to spend money to educate students the way they need to be educated. And the other part of it was, so I said required, that Congress said that we would give 40% of those expenses the federal government would pay for. Currently, Michigan is receiving 14.8% from the federal government to cover our education expenses. So I'm going to say that one more time. The law says 40% should be covered by the federal government, but then it goes to the Appropriations Committee, and the Appropriations Committee decides how much the federal government's actually going to spend. And right now in Michigan, it's 14.8%. The highest it's ever been is 20%. So for 47 years, there has been a shortfall of funding from the federal government. So what we talked about with our lawmakers was what that means to our district, what that looks like, how that impacts both our special education students and also our general education students. So in Huron Valley School District, our shortfall is $2,367,819. So when we were advocating, every single one of us from Oakland County and from our consortium talked about what that money means, what that shortfall, that number means to the students in our classrooms, and the things that we could do with $2,367,819. Okay, next we talked about education professional shortage. I'm seeing all these education professionals in our audience, and we can't tell you enough how much we appreciate you. But we talked about this is a serious issue. And even before COVID, we knew that this was a serious issue based on teacher retirements and then also teacher recruitment at the colleges and universities. But it's not just teachers, it's education across the board. Special education is of specific concern. School psychologists, social works, paraprofessionals, transportation, school-age care, and other jobs are really difficult to fill. We're seeing that in Huron Valley, but our numbers are actually better than a lot of other districts. Our very urban districts and the very rural districts are the ones that are struggling the most. We talked about the need for incentives to create, to encourage recruiting and also retain folks to the education field. We also discussed free and reduced meal expansion. We were so fortunate during the COVID times to be able to provide meal service, both breakfast and lunch, to our students, all of our students. We didn't have any forms to fill out, any of that sort of stuff. And there's a real movement to try to get that for always. We are one of very few programs that are mandated for people to participate, like jail, jury duty, etc., where we don't provide meals. When you're in everything else that's mandated for you to participate, they provide meals. So that's part of our conversation. Kids need to eat in order for their brains to work. And we really want them to eat good, nutritious food. So that's something we talked about too. Then the last area that we focused on was title funding. So we want to protect and increase title funding for at-risk students. Districts that received ESSER funds have exhausted those, but we still need to support our at-risk students. Also, we want to protect and increase funding for Title 4A. Am I right? Yes, I read the Roman numeral correctly. Student support and academic enrichment grants. So these grants really help well-round the curriculum, including our non-core curriculum programs. So we talked about that. The interesting thing as we were talking with our lawmakers about this, I said that Washington's kind of been thrown up in the air and everybody's landing in a space. Many of our electeds, our senators both have served in their roles for a long time and are pretty well established, but our elected representatives are very new to their committees. So they have a lot to learn, and all of them, specifically the two for our group, have said, hey, we need help. We want to come and see what you're talking about and what that looks like, and that felt pretty good. So that was sort of what we learned on the first few days, but then on Tuesday, it was elected official bonanza. It was a long, full day of elected officials. Our legislative partners at the K-12 Alliance arranged meetings for myself, but every Oakland County, Macomb County, and Wayne County school board member who was present to meet face-to-face, not one-on-one, but small group on one with every one of our elected officials. So we kicked off the day with Senator Stabenow. Her role that really is important to schools is that she serves on the Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry Committee, which means lunches. When we talk about breakfast and lunches at schools, she's our lady who's advocating for that. So she talked about expanding broadband access in rural areas so students have access. That's important in Huron Valley schools. We have a lot of places where even if broadband is available, affordability isn't there for so many of our families. Talked about free and reduced meals, talked about strengthening student and family access to health care. We've seen lots of good success recently with school-based health clinics, both mental health clinics and physical health clinics. And there was discussion about that. And there is a bipartisan bill that's going forward soon called Hallways to Health that includes some access to funding for some of these things. Next, we saw Senator Peters. Senator Peters is the chairman of the Homeland Security and Government Affairs Committee. You may be wondering what that has to do with schools. Well, cybersecurity is a real threat. It's another one of those things that we spend a lot of money on that's taking money out of teaching and learning, but is keeping us going. It's keeping us moving. I know in the TLT community, we talked about this a lot. There have been schools that have been really held hostage and ransom required in order to get those computers going. And it's hard for us to do teaching and learning when the schools aren't working. He shared a report released called Protecting Our Futures, Partnering to Safeguard K-12 Organizations from Cybersecurity Threats. I shared that report with COAT team, with Dr. Sala and President Wiseman to share it with the group. It has lots of interesting resources and information to share, and that's something that he's keeping on top of his mind. Next, I spent my day in a room with every single congressional representative for Oakland County, and it was an interesting day. So these two pictured here are Congresswoman Lisa McClain, who represents Michigan's 9th Congressional District, and that's really the majority of our population in Huron Valley. I want to say it's close to 80% of Huron Valley's population is in Congresswoman McClain's district. And then the other little bit of us and South Lyon schools are in Congresswoman Slotkin's district. But we sat there for the day. We heard from Congressman James. We heard from Congresswoman Slotkin. We heard from Congresswoman Tlaib. We heard from Congresswoman Dingell's staff, and all of them really had very similar messages to us that IDEA funding is important, but we're not probably going to see much of an increase this year. Which, you know, for those of us who were in the room trying all week to prepare ourselves and really teach the stuff and learn, they kind of said, no, that's really not going to happen. And that was a bipartisan message, I'll tell you, from both our Democratic and our Republican elected officials. So it doesn't mean that we're going to stop. We're going to keep talking about it. We're going to keep advocating. It's been 47 years. Let's hope by the 50th year we can actually get full funding. Those things all start with F, and wouldn't that be wonderful if by the 50th year we had full funding for IDEA? The two people who represent us, though, are on important committees for a couple of reasons. Congresswoman McLean was recently appointed to the House Committee on Education and the Workforce. It's important, and I think we have maybe 2 or 3 other elected representatives from Oakland County who also serve on that committee. They have said that Speaker McCarthy, one of his top 3 priorities is education. So we need to continue to advocate and make sure we're watching those bills and speaking out and letting them know why bills that they're proposing are good for Huron Valley schools and why some of the bills they're proposing may not be good for Huron Valley schools. So Congresswoman McLean's office expects to hear from us and would really, I've invited them for a visit to the district to come and see what we're doing and meet with leadership to help bring them along and show them how we do it in the Valley. Congresswoman Slotkin, just on the Friday when we were there, was appointed the House Committee on Agriculture. Again, just like Senator Stabenow, that House Committee on Agriculture is responsible for school lunches. I invited her to come serve some lunches in our cafeteria one day, hang out with the wonderful food service folks, and talk with even maybe some students about how school breakfast and lunch really helps make their days work better, makes their brains work better. So invitations have gone out to both of those folks, and I hope that they will take us up on our offer. So continuing on, so what does ongoing advocacy look like? So this was step 1. This was federal advocacy. It's important that we build bipartisan relationships with our local, state, and federal representatives. We all have a lot in common, and I think we can always find something. And I think schools is one of those somethings that we can find something in common with. Making sure that we're building a good future for our kids is important. I didn't hear once the thing that we always hear from elected representatives of, we can't do that because it's going to put the tax burden on the backs of our children. And I was glad during these conversations that we didn't hear that, because we're really preparing these children, and I think it's important we invest in them. We want to serve as a resource. So we don't want to just be seen as pen pals who are constantly writing them asking for something. We want to serve as a resource and educators to help bring them along and show them what they're planning and what they're thinking of, how that actually works in a real world setting. We want to stay aware of legislation. And we also want to ensure that building and inspiring futures, one student at a time, remains at the center of our advocacy work, and keeping that really core to what we're doing. So that's it. Any questions?
Mrs. Cotter.
Laura, I don't have any questions, just a comment. And I know that everyone who's sitting here on the board brings something special. And I just want to thank you for what you gave up from your family time in the presentation you did tonight. We couldn't have sent anybody better to represent Huron Valley than Laura Dodd.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for that.
I just wanted to add a little piece about the breakfast and lunches. I've never been a huge proponent of using our money for food unnecessarily, but some of you guys know I started teaching recently, and I've been fortunate enough to meet people who they rely on those breakfasts. I mean, this boy, he comes in every morning, and I got, you develop relationships and you start to want to care, help these people. So I do see the need in the public, and it is heartbreaking, when I'm sneaking them like stuff out of my lunch and putting it in his desk because I want to make sure he has food to take home. He has 5 siblings, and I'm like, I know that the need is there in our community, and it's seeing it really brings it home. And so those lunches and breakfasts really do mean a lot.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments? Once again, I want to thank you for the time spent. I totally agree with Ms. Cotter, that we couldn't have sent anybody better. And at the same time, I look forward to continuing this relationship that you've built at the federal level, at the state level, because I know that Dr. Salah has already set up some meetings at the state level so that we can continue that dialogue in Lansing. And then I also want to point out that Laura is also our school district representative at the Oakland County School Board Association level as it pertains to the Government Relations Committee. And Amy and myself are alternates on that committee, and they meet virtually primarily. And there's a meeting coming up this Wednesday that we look forward to because, as Laura talked about at the federal level, those key initiatives in what comes to the top, that's also occurring at the state level and also occurring at the local level. So we all know that relationships are extraordinarily important, and I truly believe that what you did in Washington, D.C. will pay significant dividends to our Oakland County, but more importantly, quite frankly, to Huron Valley schools and the impact it'll have on our students. So once again, thank you very much. All right. Public comments. We already had an opportunity. This is a last chance for anybody to have any public comments. I don't see any. So good and welfare. Good and welfare. Does anyone have any good and welfare? Yes, Laura.
Because you haven't heard enough from me tonight. Okay, good and welfare. I want to give a big, huge congratulations to our elementary schools. They raised together over $100,000 for the American Heart Association for the Kids Heart Challenge. So the mission of the American Heart Association is to be a relentless force for a world of longer, healthier lives. And our kids, you were there, Mr. Wiseman?
Yes, I was.
And I see some faces in the crowd here who I think were there working it out with their kids. You couldn't have seen longer, healthier lives than just being in that room with those little kids really working it. It was great. Even Mrs. Mondrush was there, jump roping with her dog. I missed it because I was in the hallway. But this is so important. We have kids in our district, and I have kids in my family who have dealt with serious conditions with their hearts. And I think our kids every year and our PE teachers just rallying the troops, pulling it together, getting these kids and the families and everybody to contribute is kind of Herculean. It's a pretty big deal. They work really hard. Mr. Bruger lights up this phone all January trying to remind everybody to get this done. So just a real thanks. It means a lot. And also, so I mentioned the PE teachers. Thank you to the PE teachers. I saw lots of educators there hanging out with their kids on Saturday, parents, and really everybody for coming together. It was wonderful. There's no better way to see the spirit of our elementary kids than hanging out in the Milford field house for the day. So it was great. Congratulations.
It was an amazing day, and the financial impact, and the kids had a ball. I mean, there was so much laughter and so much fun. Some of the things that they were doing downstairs while I was upstairs watching, I was glad I was upstairs watching, not participating, because our PE teachers probably would have had to provide some basic first aid for me, but I appreciate that. Any other good and welfare? Yes, Amy.
I just want to congratulate the Milford High School competitive cheer team for being LVC district champs. I also want to congratulate wrestling. Milford High School had a really great weekend. They had 3 first place wrestlers that were LVC champs, Camilla Fielder, Miller Parker, and Aiden Beatty. I know that I talk a lot about sports. I am a sports mom, but I love what sports and really all of our after school activities bring to our students. You know, there is a great deal of discipline, self-discipline, as well as self-sacrifice. And these are all skills that they will carry into their adult life. And so I just want to say congratulations to both of our wrestlers and to our competitive cheer. Well done.
Great. Thank you very much. Anything else? I have just a couple. Once again, I'm going to remind everyone, because this is our only meeting in February, that we have a board meeting on March 6th, but on March 7th and March 8th is a community forum. So don't miss your opportunity to talk to each and every one of us one-on-one. This is an opportunity, as I've said before, during these meetings, we have public comments, but it's not an opportunity for dialogue. These community forums are opportunities to have dialogue with board members. So please take advantage of that. We'd love to hear from you from 6 to 8, March 7th at Muir Middle School and March 8th at White Lake Middle School. A couple other reminders. I think the Johnson Elementary students probably took it for when I said, well, because you presented so well, it's early release for you. Well, it's really, don't tell them, but it's district-wide early release, okay? Let them believe that it was just because they did a marvelous job, all right? They can show a lot of pride tomorrow at school and say, hey, I did such a great job. You guys can leave a little bit early, but it is a professional development day for our teachers and our professional staff, so I appreciate the work that they're doing. On Wednesday, it's Count Day. Jeffrey really gets excited about Count Day. Well, why is Count Day? Because every day counts, right? Every day our students need to be in the classroom, but why is Wednesday so important?
I'm glad you asked that. All days are important, obviously, but Count Day is essentially how the state is able to provide funding for us for about some. Yes, we will. I'll actually bring my car if you're interested in coming to school today. Count Day is very important because that allows us to do what we do in the district. So
absolutely,
the state's only allowed to recognize 2 days. All 180 educational days are important, but if you can get your kid to school on Wednesday, we appreciate it.
Appreciate that. Next, I'll go directly to John on this. We have parent orientation coming up, I think, March 16th. What for kindergarten orientation is for both junior kindergarten and kindergarten. Why don't you talk a little bit about that so people can plan on
Yeah, this is a great time. We get to welcome our incoming kindergartners, our families, and I know a lot of families that have little ones starting kindergarten next year are building principals, and I know many of our educators are there for kindergarten orientation to help welcome families and give them a little bit of preview on what kindergarten is all about. We have both kindergarten and we also have a junior kindergarten program, which is great for those kids that might need a little additional time, and so we call junior kindergarten a gift of time where students have the opportunity to experience a 2-year program for kindergarten. So again, as you mentioned, that's coming up on March 16th. And so we're looking forward to that at each of our elementary buildings.
So if you're watching and you have a little one that's going to be in school next year, circle that day. It's a big day. It's a great day for you to come and see what's going on in our schools. There's no better place to learn than Huron Valley Schools. So take us up on that day too. I appreciate that. Anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, this meeting's adjourned.